vinyl lovers, welcome to a very special edition of Vinyl Fetish. We're still doing our 100 albums that should be in your collection if you're a true lover of music and vinyl and all things musical. But this is a record that has a special connection to me. Today we're going to be talking about the January 1977 release, the Runaways, Queens of Noise, their second album on Mercury Records. And this record, as you can tell by the scrawling on it, has sort of a personal connection to me. There is a moment in music when sort of everything shifts, when there's what we would call a paradigm shift. And there was this thing in rock and roll that was brewing up from the underground. And sometimes it was called punk rock, sometimes it was called new wave, sometimes it was called proto metal. But there was this thing that really wanted to rebel against the dominant narrative of disco and ABBA and all that stuff. And for all us kids in the 70s, especially the kids in the suburbs, we were just waiting for something to happen. We didn't know how to get it. We didn't have the internet. We didn't have MTV. We didn't have much of anything. Occasionally, Don Kirshner's rock concert or midnight special. Occasionally, we'd find out about music. We'd read about it in rock magazines. And starting in 1977, I started reading about this thing called punk rock. And happening in England and happening in New York. It sounded so exciting, but you couldn't get your hands on it. What I was into in 1977, hardcore, was the band Kiss. I was a hardcore Kiss Army member. And one of the ways that you got music in the 70s is you joined the record club. You joined, because the record stores were far away and they didn't have what you wanted. So he joined the Columbia House Record Club. And the way that it worked is you could sign up with Columbia Record House and you could get 12 albums for a penny. 12 albums for a penny. And then you had to buy 3 or 4 albums over the next couple of years at their elevated prices. And so I got this catalog from a friend because I wanted to round out my Kiss collection. I needed more Kiss albums. And you got to pick out 12 albums, like, you know, shopping spree. And there was a little section in this edition that had Kiss on the cover entitled Punk Rock. And I'd gotten some pretty non-punk rock things. I'd gotten a bunch of Kiss records. I got Steve Miller. I got Ted Nugent. I got the Atlanta Rhythm section. I got Fleetwood Mac. And I had a couple more spaces, and there was this little box called punk rock, and it had Patti Smith, the Ramones, and this band called the Runaways. And I'd read about the Runaways in a rock magazine. They had one record out, and they had their second record had just come out. And I decided for my 12th pick from my Columbia House collection, this is Randy, 13 years old, I was going to get this Runaways Queens of Noise album. They all came in a box, in a cardboard box. I went through and played them all, including the Kiss albums, and it was the Runaways album that sent me over the edge. It was so great. It was so rock and roll. I loved it that there was these 5 women rocking out, and it became sort of my direction musically. I said, I got to find out more about this punk rock stuff. I need to find out about the Ramones and Patti Smith and all this other stuff that I'm hearing about. Forget about Ted Nugent. That's in the past, and it sent me on a direction. This record, in a way, is pure teen perfection. They're all teenagers when they made this record. Their second album. Cherie Currie, the singer, was 17. Joan Jett was 18. The rest are 17 or 18. They're all high school kids, essentially, making this record, being directed by their guru, Kim Fowley, who had worked with Kiss, by the way. And this record is wide open rock and roll. I don't know how punk it is, but in that era, anything that wasn't Styx or you know, mainstream radio rock was kind of considered punk rock. Even Kiss, by the way, some people, you know, referred to Kiss as punk rock, which is sort of silly now to think to them. Of course, you know, they were sort of tarted up for the market. It sort of meant to look like stripper poles, I imagine. And this record, I just lived this record so loud. All of it, and much of it, most of it was written by the members of the band themselves. The title track was written for them, Queens of Noise, sung by Joan Jett, even though Cherie Currie was supposed to sing it, but she couldn't make it to the studio that day because she was having a procedure done, as teenage girls who get in trouble sometimes have to do. But Joan and Cherie sort of trade vocals a lot on this record, and there is a lot of teen angst. I love Playing with Fire. California, Paradise, Johnny Guitar. As someone who was sort of just discovering Jimi Hendrix, to me, Johnny Guitar with Lita Ford doing these elongated kind of psychedelic solos was just like the best thing ever. They've since said that they hated that record, that song, but I loved it. But there is one track on this record to me. I'll have to tell you, there is all these songs have a story. I mean, Born to Be Bad is such a great rebel song. And it's something that'll be a conversation for a later day. But around 1984, I developed a kind of a relationship with the band, the Bangles. And we were in Nashville, Tennessee, and we were just talking music. And I was talking to Mickey Steele, the bass player of the Bangles. And I was just like, oh, I love the Runaways. And she said, I was in that band. I'm like, what? Yeah, she was in an early version when they were playing at Fast Freddy's living room. She was the original bass player, I guess, and she co-wrote Born to Be Bad. And I look at right on there, her name is right on there, Mickey Steele from the Bangles. So there's all this great overlap, and I love that song. But the song to me that still gets me is the anthem, and this owes a lot to Lita Ford's incredible guitar skills, Neon Angels on the Road to Ruin. There is something like a massive guitar riff that goes up and goes down. That right there, that's all you need. That's all you need in rock and roll. With Jackie Fox coming in on the zooming, I must have tortured my neighbors in Stone Mountain, Georgia, with Queen, Neon Angels on the Road to Ruin, over and over and over again. I could not stop playing that song, and I still can't stop playing it. It's so rock and roll. So the whole album is just really great, and it's really a turning point. It has an incredibly personal connection to me. For me, one of as people know who saw the 2010 movie, the band sort of splits up. Shuri leaves the band, and then they go on as a four-piece for a little bit, including this version, this nice little picture disc, and then they sort of break up, and then Joan Jett starts a solo career, Bad Reputation, and I Love Rock and Roll, and she shoots to superstardom where she is to this day. And in 1982, when I Love Rock and Roll came out, I was working at Turtles Records, and she did an in-store at the North Lake Turtles, and I had to go to get her to sign my Runaways records. I got her to sign I Love Rock and Roll, because you want to support the new product. But right here, to Joan, lots of love, or to Randy, lots of love, Joan Jett, right there. Got her to sign it in 1982. There's a picture of me and her together, and you see like this sort of white on my face. I'm 18 years old, and that's a bunch of Clearasil that I didn't scrape off my face. I was 18, okay, 1982. That's really great. So I got to meet Joan Jett and told her about my love of the Runaways. And then in the late 90s, I was in LA for a conference, and I saw that Sandy West, the drummer of the Runaways, there's her right there, was playing a show at Coconut Teasers on the Sunset Strip in Hollywood. And I was staying in Hollywood, and I'm like, I gotta go see Sandy West. She had a band, and so it was this great little club that's not there anymore. This is around 97, I think. And so I go, and Shuri Curry, the singer of the Runaways, shows up and does a couple songs. So it's like, oh my gosh, this is 2/5 of the Runaways. I was so excited. So afterwards, we're all hanging out on the patio on Sunset at Coconut Teaser, and I told her the story of the record club and how Queens of Noise was the 12th selection of my 12 albums for a penny, and it was the one that sort of changed my life and sent my musical interest in a completely different direction. And she grabbed me and dragged me over to Shuri Curry and made me retell the story to Shuri Curry, which was so so this is like this childhood fantasy to be hanging out with the Runaways. And it was really great, especially since she died a few years later of cancer. We really miss Sandy West. And then in the next part of the story is when the movie comes out, the Runaways movie that was such a big smash that kind of put the Runaways on people's radar. I went to a special screening at the Hollywood Theater that Cherie Currie was at, and I got to raise my hand. And one of the things I said is I saw the Runaways play. I saw the Runaways open for the Ramones in 1978 at this place in Atlanta where there used to be wrestling matches. An Atlanta band called a Dynamic Atlanta Cruise-O-Matic opened, and the Runaways played second. This is after Cherie had left the band, and then the Ramones played. It was the first time of many times seeing the Ramones back in the day. And when I mentioned that, everybody in the audience, especially all these young girls who were just discovering the Runaways, just went, "Oh, you saw the Runaways?" Like, yes, I saw the Runaways. I saw them. They were great. And we got our picture taken, and I got Cherie to sign. There it is, right there. That's Cherie Currie's autograph. So now I've got two of them, met three of them. And so we actually became Facebook friends briefly. But Cherie Currie is very right-wing. She's like the blonde version of Ted Nugent. She's super right-wing, and she would come onto my Facebook page and just troll me hard about my political positions, and then finally unfriended me. Heartbreak! Oh my gosh, to be unfriended by the singer of Cherry Bomb. Sadness. And then something a little sadder happened, which was in 2015. Jackie Fox, the bass player, came out with some revelations about Kim Fowley, who had been managing the band and co-writing with them and sort of producing them, that he had basically sexually assaulted her and had been very inappropriate with the teenage girls that he was supposed to be shepherding into stardom. And it was just heartbreaking. And I wrote a blog, and I'll include the link in the description, about what happens when we recognize that the women in the world of entertainment that we idolize and look up to are also victims of sexual violence. And I posted that, and I got some really great feedback from Jackie Fox herself. She was very supportive and very appreciative. And so now I've got a fourth Runaway in my little circle. And then finally, a couple of years ago, Lita Ford was playing a show at Dante's in Portland. And I'm like, I got contact with 4 Runaways. I need the 5th. I need the great guitar genius that is Lita Ford. And so I went to the show with my album and just sort of waved it in front of her at this very small club in Portland. And she looked at me and she saw it, but we never got to talk or anything like that. But at least, this record was in the same room with Lita Ford. So, there's a great amount of value in this record about what it means in the music business. How we look at it now is kind of a dividing point when sort of the punk rock music starts going from the weird little subcultures in Manhattan and in London to kids in the suburbs start getting their hands on this stuff, how it empowered a lot of women to find a voice. I mean, people don't remember how female-centered the original wave of punk rock was. Whether we're talking about X-Ray Specs or the Pretenders. I mean, from the beginning, women really had a strong voice away from the sort of male, wank fest that was heavy metal. And it was really great to be a boy and to be like, my favorite band is 5 teenage girls that rock all the way. So this is an amazing record to have because of the historical significance about why it matters, but also this is really good. It's just really good. I was just listening to it today and I forgot how freaking good these teenage girls, and the guy that came on to kind of help produce it was this guy who had only worked as an engineer on a Beach Boys record. He didn't have a lot of background on it, but it was just sort of this effort to make this thing happen. I mean, it really didn't sell anything in 1977, comes out in January 1977, except for those of us that bought it through the Columbia House Record Club. It didn't really make it into many hands. But now, after all these years, it's seen as a significant watershed in music history, in rock history, in the role of women in music history, and also in the recognition of the exploitation of women in this business. And it's just great. It's such a great record, and I feel so connected to it. And Lita Ford, if you ever want to reach out to me so I can say, you know, we've had that connection, I would love that. You're such a cool rocker. All right. I've been so excited about sharing this record. That's Joan Jett's autograph right there. I could talk about the Runaways all day long. Next up, we're going to talk about a Beach Boys album. We got to get a Beach Boys album in this 100 countdown that is somehow connected to the Runaways. It's funny. It's like 1 degree of separation. Look, this music matters. This album is such an important moment for so many reasons. The people here, Joan Jett, there she is, 18 years old, fighting the good fight to this day. Sandy West, rest in peace. Jackie Fox became a lawyer and went on Jeopardy. She definitely matters. All these people matter. Lita Ford and Cherie Currie. Maybe she'll refriend me one day and we'll talk about something other than politics. But this record frickin' matters. This music matters. You matter. Let's talk about it.